Very good morning to you. I know you were listening in on that interview with the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and thanks, Khusela, and how he seemed to sort of relinquish any sort of responsibility when it comes at looking at corruption cases. The fact that he was proud that information relating to the company that had overseen 3 funerals and the fact that they were implicated in Mlangeni's funeral as well. I mean, what does it say to you about what's actually happening or not at that level?
Good morning, Jane. Well, I think what it tells us is it shows us the full emasculation of Parliament. And for those of us who've been around long enough, we know that a lot of this, the weakening of Parliament, goes right back to 1999 and to the inability of Parliament to, in fact, investigate one of the biggest post-apartheid corruption scandals, the arms deal. And after that, you saw a weakening of the committee system, and you saw a weakening of the Public Accounts Committee, to which the Deputy Speaker referred. And of course, that weakening has simply continued, and through the Zuma years, really, Parliament became almost an instrument of the Zuma administration to simply ram home whatever it was that President Zuma wanted. If we remember, the ad hoc committee on Nkandla didn't cover itself in glory. It took the Constitutional Court to, in fact, set out what our good governance and ethical requirements were with regard to that sort of public procurement. So this is not new, and it's not entirely surprising to me that the Deputy Speaker sounded weak. I think on a separate topic, if one looks at the way in which these virtual meetings have been happening, they have been rather shambolic, you know, with mics muted and all kinds of things, and people not joining these meetings, and also took a considerable push from civil society to actually have those meetings virtually. So one could go into a discussion about Parliament and how it's become weakened, but really it is a core part of our constitutional framework and also of the oversight over the executive, and that's simply not happening effectively enough.
Judith, I mean, what is shocking is how much focus is put on corruption. I mean, the fact that, again, going back to Mlangeni's funeral, I mean, we know that this is a company that's been tainted, and yet it goes right down to the wire, and the only reason that it's been looked at now is because it was exposed. Otherwise, it might have just got away with it. So you wonder what's going to enforce any sort of change if that feeling, that mentality is still there, that actually it's okay and there's nothing that we can do about it.
There are 2 things, Jane. I think the first is that shame is a rare commodity in South African politics. And so it seems as if people are sort of caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And there's no real shame because they're rehabilitated into a diplomatic position. If you're a member of the ANC and so on, you will find your way back into the structure. And secondly is a thread of impunity which runs through our public life and which runs through the way in which citizens then respond. And part of that is about whether there are consequences for people's actions. We have a state capture commission, the Zondo Commission, which is continuing, and that shows us the level of shamelessness, the level of impunity, and it also shows us that all of these individuals still walk free, and there is a sense of restlessness, and I think rightly so, amongst the citizenry of South Africa with regard to consequences. Hence, I think President Ramaphosa's announcement last Thursday around a new proclamation for the SIU. But as you say, the fact that it goes right down to Andrew Mlangeni's funeral, the shame of that, the shame of having people breaching COVID-19 social distancing rules, police possibly smoking in the open. This is impunity and it is shamelessness, and it's come to mark South African public life. And, you know, the time has come for us to really act against it. But can we act against it when the ANC, which sends people to Parliament, to Cabinet, is itself fractured and corrupt to its very core?
Briefly, if you will, I mean, a party bereft of ideas at the same time, but what's the alternative?
Well, there is no alternative, and so one has to. We have a constitution, we have all of these institutions. The President talked about FICA, he talked about the NPA, about SARS, coming together to deal with this COVID corruption, which I might say is the worst kind of corruption, preying as it is on the poorest of the poor. But, and we've seen that before, The problem, of course, Jane, is that many of these institutions have been hollowed out. Again, we have the Zuma years to thank for that, but even before then, and also we don't have the Scorpions. I think we need to always look back before we can look forward. It was in 2009 that the ANC in Parliament disbanded the Scorpions because it had become an inconvenient tool for it to fight corruption. And so, but what we have to keep doing is highlighting these stories. We have to keep using our voices and demanding the accountability that the Constitution requires. We're lucky in South Africa that we have a vibrant civil society keeping a watch on all of these issues, and a media that is alert to these issues. And I don't think we should underestimate the power of that before we entirely throw our hands up.
Judith February, thank you.